Hola everyone, it's Marla. Welcome back to Twinstrology. I'm here to share some information today about the Taurus new moon. As you can see from the image, I'm calling this new moon liberation. The new moon is conjunct Uranus, the planet of liberation, and really ushering in a time of great change. It's a very powerful and important time, and I have a lot to go over today, so I'm going to try and be quick. The new moon does happen on April 22nd, so that's the last of the 444 days, and this is going to be closing the 444 gateway. And this new moon is acting as a wake-up call and has a catalyst for activating us deeper into freedom on many levels, to do with material things, money, our sense of self-worth. When we're talking about our karma, Taurus has a lot to do with the areas where we get stuck because we've had some kind of prior trauma, and due to that trauma, we've needed to develop belief systems or programmings, some kind of coping mechanism that helps us deal with that trauma in the moment, but then it becomes a sticking point. It becomes a place where it creates a limitation in the long run. Uranus has been in Taurus for a while, and I talked about that energy in a video I did about Uranus and Taurus, and I'll try to link it here, but I'll also put it in the description box as well if any of you want to go back and read that. So during this new moon, what's happening is Uranus and Taurus conjunct the new moon is going to be squaring Saturn in Aquarius. And Saturn's just kind of dipping his toe into Aquarius, and then he's going to be going retrograde. Where is Saturn going retrograde, actually? I meant to kind of mention that. I think he's going retrograde in May. Yes, he's going retrograde on May 10th. And he's pretty much stopped at this degree, which I'm going to talk about later on in the video, for an extended time because of his retrograde. But so Saturn will be going back into Capricorn because we're not quite ready to move into that Aquarian energy just yet. Saturn and Uranus represent opposing energies. Where Saturn is fear and limitation, Uranus is liberation. Saturn is the old guard, Uranus is the new guard. Saturn represents authority, Uranus represents rebellion. Saturn represents protecting our traditions, and Uranus represents bringing change through revolution. Saturn is the material realm, the 3D world, and Uranus represents the fifth dimensional world and the awakening frequencies. And then the new moon coming in is going to act as the activation point, touching off the energies of these planets in square. And it's meant to shake us out of our complacency. And we're very much seeing this dual narrative that's happening with the energy of Uranus and Saturn. And I don't want to give the impression that Saturn is bad. Saturn is not bad. In order to actually create something tangible in this world, to create something with a strong foundation that's going to be of lasting value, we need Saturn. But these two planets, we need to find a sense of balance with these planets, because there's things about the old guard and the old authority figures that we see breaking down because of the Saturn-Pluto, Jupiter-Pluto energies. We're seeing them break down now. So we're needing to bring in the Uranian energy to create the change how we want to see it. when those two planets come together, it can be taking something traditional and just bringing a new energy to it, a new vision. An example of that would be the Constitution. Okay, that's Saturn. We're not going to get rid of our Constitution. At least, heaven forbid, we're not going to get rid of that. Of course we're not, because we're all gearing up to stand up for ourselves. But perhaps we need to bring a new sense of identity to the Constitution, or we need to update the way we see the Constitution in our mind. We need to somehow bring a new, enlivening energy to that. There's also a lot of these, or this dual narrative being played out through the media, through what officials are telling us, even through our own interactions with each other, because people are at different places. If we look at COVID-19, for example, there's kind of the official narrative of it, and then there's this underlying narrative that is activating people to seek deeper truth around that official narrative, because it's not resonating for most people, most awake people. So I'm not saying that the virus is fake at all, or that we shouldn't be protecting ourselves, but I will say that there's a mountain of information and truth around this situation that has not been revealed. But this energy of Uranus coming in with the new moon squaring Saturn is a breaking down of not being able to get the information in the past. Because truth has to come out now, and Jupiter-Pluto is that conjunction that we just had is really activating truth that has been hidden, needs to come out. So the powers that be have no choice now. The light has won. They have to start giving us the information and providing us with disclosure. And they will do that when we demand it. So we need to watch our rights and just do just that. We need to demand that they start providing us with truth, not only about COVID-19, but many, many other things going back a very long time. Of course, a lot of this has to do with the negative forces on this planet and the negative forces that are behind the energies that are happening now, like COVID-19, and they're trying to enslave us. They're trying to enslave humanity. But what they hadn't accounted for was that there is too many people awake that they're not going to get away with it. That instead of harming us, they're actually activating us deeper into awakening and deeper into this sense of liberation from them and from the past. There's a lot of integration that's happening right now on the 3D, 4D, 5D levels. Some of you have karma with some of these negative forces. This is something that I've been working on a lot myself, and that's why I've been kind of quiet for the most part. I'm doing a lot of integrating, and I was given some visions of my own karma that I had attached to this energy of the negative forces or the cabal, the Illuminati, whatever you want to use to label them. But at the same time, when I had these visions, my guide took me down into a cave. And those of you that know about the things that are happening, you know that there are children and human trafficking being held in caves. And I walked through these caves and I saw people in there, but there were no doors. And my guide, they took me down and through and back up again into the light. And I was like, well, there's no doors. And they said, yes, exactly. Like, it's done. It's over. We are free. We've been liberated. They cannot control us. That's in the past. So we need to just remember that and focus on that it's done. And we're just going through the motions of the transition out of the old, which is Saturn, and into the new. So we can be free. We need to choose to be free. We all choose what we want in any given moment. I had someone ask me in a call this week, I think, why those dark forces were dark, or why were they choosing that? And we make a choice in every single minute what we're going to be, what energy we're going to choose, what vibration we're going to choose. And some people sometimes choose to be on the lower vibration. But if we look at it all as a learning experience and remember that we're all one, then we don't need to attach too much energy to that, and which is what we need to do. We need to let it go. Some of this is representing us integrating the disparaging parts of ourself and the different polarities in ourself, and how those polarities are reflected outside of us. Understanding that union is about breaking free of those polarities and our dualistic nature. Those of us that have come in on the twin flame template know this, because we've done this energy with our twin flame. Your twin represents polarities within each of you. So there's going to be a certain issue, whatever issue is most important to your journey. You're likely going to be polarized on it, whether it's political, religious, philosophical. A lot of people have, even, for example, an age difference can be put in there. Okay, so you have differences, but your unconditional love for each other forces you to overcome these differences and to create a sense of oneness. And we've done that as twin flames. Now we need to do this as a collective. We need to understand that the people we see walking around that have the opposite opinion of us, that are in a polarity to us, that we're still one. And we have to reach out to each other. We have to use the vibration of love to bring us back to a sense of unity. Ultimately, we're not so different. But right now, it's extremely hard to see that, because this polarity is being pulled out of us, if you will. But the more that we can move past the duality, the polarizations, the seeing people as outside of ourselves and judging what other people are doing, the more we break free of any negative energy. But with everything that's going on and the energies of the planets here, we're needing to see that our rights are being systematically taken away under the guise of our protection. There's also a lot of misinformation coming from all directions, and that creates a lot of confusion. But part of the things that are happening and that will be revealed is part of that misinformation. And it's also showing that people are experiencing different realities as well. So don't get me wrong, I understand fear. I know that everybody is going through a lot right now and that things are very intense for everybody. But this is also a test in many ways to see if we can liberate ourselves. And understanding that freedom starts within us. That means breaking free of programming and control and speaking our truth. And if need be, demanding our freedom in a nonviolent way. So I ask all of you to educate yourselves on your rights. And I'm not saying don't follow guidelines, but what does it hurt to know what your rights are? And if need be, voice your rights with officials if you feel called to do that. I mean, to ask questions doesn't take anything away from whatever you feel about the situation that's happening, right? You can honor that. You can do your part to stay inside, practice social distancing, but why would that mean that you shouldn't ask questions? The longer that we allow this to go on with the fear, the control, the lockdown, the removal of our livelihoods, the more control those powers that be are going to try and take away from us. So, just be aware. Ask questions. Check everything out. Know, like if you live in America, know the Constitution. The First Amendment protects our right to protest and to have freedom of speech. I know there are people protesting around the world, actually. And, even if you're against that because you're worried about the virus, like the protests they had in Michigan, people were in their cars. They were still practicing social distancing. They were still trying to make people feel safe. So they found a very interesting way to assert their voice while also not being, disruptive to other people that were concerned for their welfare. So one of the big things that's happening right now for us is that we are needing to claim our sovereignty from the control forces. And there's a big movement right now on the internet about this. And it's basically declaring that we are free beings and we do not consent to anything that's trying to be put on us control-wise. So I recommend that all of you take the time to claim your sovereignty. My friend Keleena did a video a couple days ago, and I'm going to link that video in the comments. And I really hope that you'll watch her whole video because it's very good. She talks a lot about the stuff that I'm talking about right now, but she goes more in depth. And she brings in some light language and some healing and things as well. But if you're really strapped for time, you can go to about the 25-minute mark. And there Keleena does a declaration of sovereignty, basically saying, we are free beings. We do not consent to having our freedoms taken away. She also goes into a lot about not attaching to the energy, because as I said, the energy is already done and we're just going through the destruction and the rebuilding phase. So we don't need to fear it or feed into it. I also believe that Magenta Pixie did a video similar to Keleena's. I have not watched her video, but if you resonate with Magenta Pixie, then by all means, look up the video that she did that also has a declaration of sovereignty in it. But this is part of our liberation and standing up and saying no. So I want to get into some of the Sabian symbols and things because these are really telling with this new moon. Before I go into that, I want to just show you a couple cards that I pulled. I've been getting these cards over and over again for like a week. And when I sat down to do this video today and I started looking into the Sabian symbols, I was like, oh wow, now these cards are really making sense. This is cards from the Intuit Oracle deck by Kimberly Aria. And so I'm going to leave these up as I talk about the Sabian symbols. I also did a channeling the other day about needing to keep our sense of peace about us right now. And in that channeling, they had said, even though it feels like you're in a storm, there's a rainbow just on the horizon. So again, this images of storms and rainbow is coming up. The Sabian symbol, let's start with Saturn. The Sabian symbol for Saturn is an unexpected thunderstorm. And I talked about the Sabian a couple weeks ago around the 444 gateway, and I was looking into some of the energies around the shift that was happening there, the 10 days of darkness. At that time, Mars was on it, but since then, Saturn's moved onto this degree. And remember, I spoke about this a minute ago, that Saturn's stationing retrograde here. So Saturn's actually on this degree until June 15th. Okay, so that's like he's on this degree for over 2 months, an unexpected thunderstorm. So you can bet that a lot of things that we're not expecting are going to be triggered up. You can think about a lightning strike, things clearing, the energy of the tower, all relate. And you can see like on this card, tornado, Kimberly has storm brewing, torn up, a sudden unexpected end, breakdown, over and done, destroy, and even the word liberate. The energy of the new moon is on the Sabian symbol of pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. So there we have the sun and the moon bringing up the double rainbow energy. And here on this card, it says divine intervention, duality, perfect timing, ascension, serendipity, good luck, and cohesive. After the storm comes a rainbow. In fact, that's another Sabian symbol, that exact wording. After the storm, a rainbow. But our guides want us to focus on the fact that whatever is happening in the breaking down of the old, it does not mean that the rainbow is not also happening. Remember, a rainbow can happen when it's still raining, but the sun is out. So we need to keep our focus on that image. Also, the rainbow bridge is another term that I'm getting for that rainbow energy. And actually, Chiron is known as the rainbow bridge between Saturn and Uranus, and shifting between the 3D and the 5D energy in order to ascend. Now Uranus is on the Sabian Symbol. The Woman of Samaria comes to draw water from Jacob's well. And I want to read some of this from the book, so bear with me, guys. I know it's kind of boring when people are reading, but I think it's important and speaks to the energies. It says this symbol comes from the biblical story of Jesus meeting the woman of Samaria. She, along with others, was taken by surprise that Jesus would actually speak to her, for she was a Samaritan and he was a Jew. They normally did not get along. She was also on the fringe of her own society as she was not married. As Jesus spoke to the woman, he revealed to her that he was the Messiah. This was a great blessing to her, and the Buddhist tradition tells of a similar story of being accepted regardless of caste. Now, in the Bible, this story takes place in John chapter 4, and I'm going to read verses 23 to 24. Jesus said, "Yet a time is coming, and has now come, when the true worshipers will worship the Father in the Spirit and in truth, for they are the kind of worshipers the Father seeks. God is Spirit, and his worshipers must worship in the Spirit and in truth." So here, what Jesus is saying, the Spirit is equal to our soul, and we must be in our soul's truth. That is how God wants us to be, and to be in our heart. When we act from our heart, we act in our truth. This story also has to do with a well, Jacob's well, and that symbology represents going deep and going within to find our soul and to find our freedom through that energy. So the book continues. This symbol calls for universal love to be available to everyone. It speaks of the need to dispel prejudice, either given or received. With this symbol, there can be the urge to seek and to find acceptance, love, and redemption. If one's elders have passed down prejudices, be aware that they live in a different time. Living in the present may require the updating of ideas and opinions. If your heart is clogged up with the old emotions or spent feelings, it's time to clear those. And again, remember that the well is representing water and the emotions. In doing so, address situations that hold people apart. Take action to restore any lost self-respect. Own up, express your concerns to that stranger within yourself, your shadow, and then let them go. Some of the key words: past lives, new ideas being revealed about one's social and spiritual integrity, going below the surface, assimilation of divergent ideals, feeling blessed, life-altering experiences, freedom and respect for all, stepping over social boundaries, caution, allowing social prejudice to rule decisions about oneself and others, unacceptable behavior based on social conditioning, issues of being acceptable, worthy, or a local. So yeah, thank you for bearing with me as I went through that. By the way, this book I'm reading from that contains the Sabian symbols is Linda Hill's interpretation, and the book is called 360 Degrees of Wisdom. So I felt like that Sabian symbol, the Bible verse, and the way that Linda Hill interprets them is really important and very indicative of the energy that we're going through, because we're in this energy of separation, and we have to find a way to come together. And it may be, this is going to take time, I'm sure. But we, as light workers that have been on this journey for a while, we've made a lot of progress. Not saying that you aren't going to be dealing with triggers, because likely you are. But by now, hopefully you know how to deal with the triggers. Like I said, I channeled a message the other day from the Council of Light about how important it is to preserve our peace so that we can assist others. Like we don't want to be contributing to more fear, more anger. Better right now at this very tumultuous time if we can bring an energy of peace while still, be assertive if you need to, speak your truth if you need to. Maybe the key thing is really asking, do I need to speak this? Am I just being angry and trying to assert my opinion and it's going to lead to an argument? Ask yourself if it's worth it or not. Or some people might be attacking you as well. And maybe ask yourself, like, is it worth it to have an argument with this person, or do I just let it go and go back to that state of peace and balance within? There's another thing I want to mention here too, because in this Sabian speaking about the well, and I've had a special guide with me recently, the last couple months, in the form of Michael Hutchence, who some of you may know was the lead singer for a band called INXS that were very popular in the 80s and 90s. And Michael crossed over in 1997. But I've been connecting with his energies a lot and receiving messages. And one of the things that I feel called to do is share some of his music. And I feel like some of you will get an activation from your music. And I think possibly there'll be more messages coming through as well. But the song that he gave me about the energies occurring at this new moon is a beautiful song called Freedom Deep from 1993. And I will read the lyrics really quickly, but I'm going to link to the song in the description box. And if you feel called, then go and listen to the song, because the song is so much more beautiful when you hear it sung with the music, and you can really feel the depth of soul. I mean, I can't even listen to that song without breaking down right now. So some of the words are: show me the way, give away the truth I'm looking for. I need a new way out of here. The door is opening. Freedom, take me deeper. All the blue days gone astray. The clouds are giving in. Freedom, take me deeper. I'm losing my fear. Suddenly the way has come to me. Freedom, take me deeper. And of course, there's a mention there of the clouds, which is one of the cards that I've been getting all week. The clouds are clearing. And right now, what he's saying is, right now, things seem so clouded up, so confused. There's so many seeming problems. But we can move through the clouds when we go within and we connect with who we are within. That is where freedom comes from, and that is where our clarity comes from. So that song is really speaking about the shift that we are experiencing in our consciousness right now. When we claim our sovereignty and our truth and our God self, this is where true freedom comes from. And until we are free, we're not fully ascended beings. So the next planet I want to mention is Mercury. And Mercury's on the 20th degree of Aries. And the Sabian symbol is a boxer entering the ring. And why I'm bringing up this one is because this is the degree of the United States Chiron, which opposes the US's Saturn and also squares the United States Unitas asteroid. And if you watch the video I did about Trump and America and the connections there, I mentioned this Sabian, and I talked about this being a wound for the United States. One of the things that this is representing here with Mercury is the division that we're experiencing. America is known as this melting pot, bringing people together in unity. But the truth is, Americans are not very united. And really, I don't think we've ever been truly united because of all the differences. We want to in our hearts so badly have this sense of unity, but we still have barriers and boundaries keeping us separated. But the beauty is, this is the structure that's being torn down so that we can really unify. And I talked about President Trump being a catalyst to help us break down the barriers between us and helping us as a country to find our true identity. And that's going to take time to get there. We're only at the beginning stages of it. But as light workers, if we can remember that we need to return to this sense of unification. But of course, this Sabian, a boxer entering the ring, speaks about anything but unity, right? And this is Mercury. So around the time of this new moon, again, you've got to be careful with your words and communicating with people, because there's bound to be, well, we know there's anger out there, but there's likely to be difficulty getting your point across. So as I said, really ask yourself, is it, in any given situation, is it worth it? You know, as I said, if you need to speak your truth, speak it, but know that there's going to be tension around communications here. But, you know, I was told that the polarities and things that are happening now is a necessary part of the shift, even though it's difficult for a lot of us who are empaths to go through. And ultimately remembering that just because we're speaking about one thing and being polarized with someone, it doesn't mean we're polarized in all areas. So just as much as we see the division in each other, if we can take time to focus on the places where we're the same, that can help us reach a state of balance. Another important thing happening is Pallas Athena, and she is going to be going retrograde next month on the 18th. But right now, she is on the 29th degree of Capricorn. So Pallas Athena is freedom. She is Lady Liberty, and she represents truth and being willing to stand up for the truth. And that's why Pallas Athena is so important to this shift that we're in. So yeah, she's on the 29th degree of Capricorn. She's going to go onto the 0 degrees of Aquarius and then go retrograde from May until September, going back to the 12th degree of Capricorn. So it's like she's like very similar to Saturn. She's just dipping her toe into the Aquarian energy. Now remember, we're going into the age of Aquarius. But then it's like, oh no, we're not ready for that Aquarian energy. We have not discovered enough truth here. And then she goes back. Now, Pallas Athena as well is connected to the third eye chakra. And if you think about her being truth, when we're in truth, our third eye is activated, and it's with our third eye we see what the truth is. What Pallas Athena has told me so many times is that the truth is within us. And if we're not free inside, then we can never fully experience what freedom is like outside of ourselves. So that's why there's this push in the ascension process to do all this inner work. As within, so without. Changing ourselves is what is the catalyst for change externally. The Sabian that Pallas is on is directors of a large firm meet in secret conference. This very much goes with the energy of what's happening, whether you want to call it a conspiracy or whatever, the dark energies. There is this secret happenings behind the scenes. The Sabians around it are rather interesting because the one before it is a woman reading tea leaves, and the one after it is an old Adobe Mission. And sometimes when we're looking at Sabians, we look at the one prior and the one after to kind of see what the shift in the energy is. So here we're being called to uncover something that's going on in secret. She's going to go on to that old Adobe Mission one. And that's an interesting one because it can represent division. It can represent colonialism and trying to control, in this case, the Native American energies. And then she goes retrograde back onto that one and then onto a woman reading tea leaves. That woman reading tea leaves is the third eye being open and being able to see below the surface, being able to see that which is hidden from this plane. And again, when we're ascending, or when we're on the twin flame journey, especially, we learn over and over again that we can't depend on what is happening in 3D, that there's a whole nother world happening in the 4 and 5D. So we don't just take things at surface value. We have to translate that now to the bigger picture. We don't just take things happening on the surface level, but we're looking deeper, we're using our third eye, and we're trying to get to the truth. Sorry, I'm just looking at my notes. I'm almost done, guys. Okay, the North Node. North Node is on a ship. Sailors lower the old flag and raise a new one. So like I said, the changing of the guard, those energies of Saturn and Uranus. Going places, letting go of our old allegiances, and revolution. Here's the chart of the new moon, actually, if anyone wants to see the chart. This is being opposed by the South Node, which is in Capricorn. An Indian chief claims recognition and power from the assembled tribe. Now, this one is really representing that energy of control. Look past kind of the cultural reference here and just see it as someone trying to claim power from the collective energies. Remember, that's the South Node. That represents the past. That represents our karma. But when we look towards the North Node and what we're incorporating and balancing that with is we're ending the old guard and we're creating a new guard. You can see that the nodes are on 0 degree. of Cancer and Capricorn, and they're going to be moving into Gemini and Sagittarius next month. Those two bodies move backwards. So I'm getting ready to do a video on what that is going to mean for us soon. We also have the asteroid Atlantis conjunct the North Node, and that's representing that we're connecting with our fifth dimensional past, with the way that we were in that previous ascension cycle. And we can use that energy of Atlantis to help us heal duality and separation. And it's showing that we're trying to move to this more idealized version of society. And then we have Venus and Mars making a nice trine with each other. Venus is in Gemini. Venus is in her shadow phase, and she's going to be going retrograde next month. In fact, so this is, we're getting very close to the end of all planets being in direct motion. On Saturday, the 25th of April, Pluto goes retrograde, okay? If you probably remember me mentioning before that all the planets have been direct for the most part since the beginning of the year, except for Mercury retrograde. So there's been a lot of forward motion. Pluto's the first, then on May 10th, Saturn goes retrograde. On May 12th, Venus goes retrograde. I'm sorry, May 13th, if you're on Eastern time. And on May 14th, Jupiter goes retrograde. So in one, just a few days time period, we have 3 major planets going retrograde. Venus is going to be a big energy, and I'll be talking about that in a separate video. But she is getting ready. She's in her shadow phase, so she's going to be going back over these degrees in her retrograde. The Sabian that she's on is a woman activist on a platform giving an emotional speech dramatizing her cause. I wouldn't be surprised if over the next couple weeks something about a woman doesn't come out in the news. For example, maybe an announcement of the Democratic candidate for Vice President. Joe Biden has said that he's going to choose a woman as his running mate. So possibly that announcement coming out. But it also represents, speaking your truth, communicating, rational, I think the book says, rational or political structures overriding one's life, which kind of means you haven't been accessing your emotions, or that your mind or the political structure has not been acknowledging emotions, which of course is true. We've been in a patriarchal society that didn't want to acknowledge the emotional side of ourselves, but now we're moving into a better balance. And Mars and Venus here are representing those energies wanting to come into balance so that we can bring up our emotions. And healing our emotions is such a big part of this. Mars is on the Sabian, a watchdog, stands guard, protecting his master and his possessions. So protecting yourself, standing guard, or being on the lookout for someone trying to do an injustice to you. I thought that was another interesting one, considering the times that we're living in. But as I said, we need to be watchful of our rights. Again, within a state of balance. We don't want to have fear. We don't want to become overly attached, but we do need to be aware and be prepared to speak up if need be. So thank you so much for listening. If you would like to do a reading with me, I'm doing readings BQH sessions or quantum healing sessions online are available, as well as astrology readings or tarot card readings. My website is marlakelly.com. I also link to that in the comments. I hope that you guys have a wonderful new moon. Thank you so much for listening, and I will speak to you again soon. Sending you all a lot of love.